the righteous shall live by faith. In other words, whatever faith is how you should roll. It should be how you flow. It should be your normal modus operandi of life. Faith is not a concept you visit. It's a lifestyle you possess. Because the righteous shall live by faith. So, if you're not living by faith, it's because you're not yet righteous. Because that's how the righteous live. And the righteous who learn to live by whatever faith is, get to experience God in action. That's what he says. You get to experience God fulfilling his word. So you've got to ask the question, am I living by faith? Because if I'm not rolling by faith, then I'm not experiencing God in my circumstances. Because that's how the righteous roll. They live by faith. But that raises a question. What is faith and how does it work? Verse 1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Faith then must have substance. It must have some stuff that you can rely on. Now, what this means is faith is only as meaningful as the substance to which it is attached. If you've got faith in bad substance, then your faith will be insufficient no matter how much of it you possess, because the substance you're placing it in isn't much. Or maybe not real at all. Faith has to do with an expectation in a hope that must involve a substance. So the amount of your faith is not tied to how much faith you have. It's tied to how much substance you possess. A little faith in significant substance produces great results. A lot of faith in insufficient substance will produce no results. Because what makes faith faith is the substance to which it is attached. So to understand faith, you have to look at the substance of things hoped for, that is what the object is, and the evidence of things not seen. So let me clarify something then about what faith is not. Faith is not how you feel. Faith is not, let me put in a word, necessarily how you feel. You can feel faithless, but be full of faith. You can feel full of faith and have no faith. Because faith is not, first and foremost, an emotion. Emotions do not have intellect. Emotions don't think. That's what emotions are. It's how you feel. And feelings shift based on the information received. Faith is tied to substance that is not yet seen or experienced with the five senses, but that you are convinced is real based on the integrity of the subject who is calling for the faith. Who is the subject calling for the faith? It's God. He says, after you've done the will of God. Now, let me tell you why this sermon, for many, may be the most important one you've ever heard. Because Hebrews 11 verse 6 says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Don't miss this one. Faith is not one of the things you need. It is the key thing you need if you want to experience God. Because without it, it says you are displeasing to God. Because When you don't exercise faith, you are challenging God's integrity. Let me put it in everyday language. To not live by faith is to call God a liar. So let me give you or remind you again of the formal definition of faith. Boiling it all down, faith is simply acting like God is telling the truth. Faith is acting like God. It's not feeling that God is telling the truth. It's not saying that God is telling the truth. Faith is acting like God is telling the truth. That's why the Bible calls it walking by faith and not talking by faith or feeling by faith or even thinking by faith. Unless it has hit your feet, it's not faith. It's intellectual assent to a concept that hasn't gotten mixed with action, therefore nothing concrete has shown up in the life. If you want a concrete manifestation of God, then what you believe about God must be married to what you do in light of that belief. Now you're exercising faith so that God can now become concrete in your life and not a theory in your head. God is real. God has power. God makes promises. But you won't see it until he sees motion. If there is no motion, it lies dormant, although it's really there. Faith is acting like it is so, even when it's not so, in order that it might be so, simply because God said so. Acting like it is so, even when it's not so, in order that it might be so, merely because God said so. Verse 2, for by it, by faith, the men of old gained approval. For by it, by this definition of faith, the men of old gained approval. He says, I'm going to take you on a tour of the men of old. Men, and he's going to have, that means men and women, because he has men and women in chapter 11. Of old, meaning in the Old Testament. He makes a statement in verse 1 about what faith is, and then he asks, are there any witnesses? He reaches back into the Old Testament and he pulls out witnesses from the Old Testament for us New Testament Christians to know that what worked for them is what you need to work for you. He's got some witnesses. So when we go through this hall of faith, we're gonna look at some witnesses, because Sarah's gonna come forth and a girlfriend has something she wants to share with you. David's gonna give a testimony. Joseph's gonna give a testimony. The patriarch's gonna give a testimony. There's gonna be testifying to let you know that verse 1 is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God when you understand faith. He says, I got some testifying to do. He said, by it, the saints of old were approved. That means validated and vindicated. There's nothing like when God validates you. The end of chapter 10 said, and he will come. He's going to validate you. That's why the end of chapter 10 says, and when you have completed the will of God. See, because some of us are in college for 20 years because we've not completed the course we've been called on. So we've not received the approval of graduation, the validation and vindication of a life of faith. We pick and choose when we want to believe God. We believe God on the things we like. We disregard him on the things we don't like. And so we're not living by faith. We are cherry picking by faith. He says the righteous, this is how they roll. In other words, non-faith is the exception. Faith is the rule, in spite of how they feel. It's like the 3 Hebrew boys that said, we believe God can deliver us. But even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow because we trust God. It's like Habakkuk says in Habakkuk chapter 3, in the last few verses, though there's no fig on the tree, though there is no cattle in the stall, though I can't see anything God is doing, I'm going to still rejoice because I still know God even though I can't see a change in my situation, because God has integrity in spite of my circumstances. There's some strange people in this list in Hebrews 11. There's some folk in this list that if we were making the list wouldn't have made the list. You got a prostitute in this list. You got a liar in this list. You got some messed up people who made the list. It means there's hope. There's hope if you and I begin to live by faith and stop faking it to make it. Playing church, playing religion, playing Christianity, and not taking God seriously and stopping our challenge of his integrity. Because why would you answer the prayer of somebody who calls you a liar every day? You lying, God, but bless me. You a liar, God, but give me a better job. You a liar, God, but give me a maid. You a liar, God, but change my circumstance. You a liar, God, but heal me. God's integrity is challenged. His promises lie dormant and unfulfilled. He comes to his final point. Verse 3. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was made out of things which are visible. I need to read that again because this is a zinger. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen, what is visible, was not made out of things which are visible. He said, to make my point about faith, let me take you all the way back to the beginning. He says, we understand that the worlds that we do see was created by someone using something we don't see. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. That's the Hebrew name for the Creator God, found in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Stay with me. It says the worlds, and notice the word worlds in verse 3 is plural. That means the whole universe, not just the earth. So the whole universe, all the galaxies that exist, was created by someone you can't see, using stuff you can't see, to create a universe you can see that we're still trying to look at through telescopes, but there are too many galaxies that even our strongest telescopes can't even locate them. What is faith? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So God has operated this way from the beginning of bringing stuff you can see out of stuff you can't see, and he created a whole universe with this strategy. Now, what did you tell me your problem was? Faith is not a concept you visit. It's a lifestyle you possess, because the righteous shall live by faith.